My name's Ross Hochstrasser, W1EKG. My wife refuses to be seen with me when I'm wearing these, by the way. I bought these out of Dayton back in 2017. A little background on me. I grew up in South Weymouth, Massachusetts, and my high school had this interesting program. It was a pilot program called Project Part-Time, where we students would go out to the elementary schools and teach. I taught radio and electronics. I also tutored reading and math. When I was in the 8th grade, they had me pegged as a dropout. I ended up graduating with honors, as it turns out. But we learned how to put together lesson plans. We learned how to fill out purchase orders. We learned how to put ideas together and teach classes. I started out with those 50-in-1 electronics kits, and within the first year, those kind of went on a shelf, and we ended up with 4 light bulbs, 2 6-volt batteries, and a bunch of alligator clips. So, because that's what worked. So that's where I get my interest in teaching from, is from doing that way back a zillion years ago. So I walked into the classroom. We teach at the Whitman Police Station, and most police stations and fire stations have training rooms. So we sign up the one for the Whitman Police Station for 4 weeks, 2 nights a week, 2 hours a night. And initially, we were using a website that sort of worked, and eventually we switched over and we use hamstudy.org. The hamstudy.org seems to follow the ARRL book fairly well. Before I go any further, I actually have a handout. If you remember what paper is, I actually printed out a bunch of these. This is a piece of paper that I give to prospective victims of my class. And we'll start these over here. Just pass them around. Everybody take one and look at it, or just look at it and throw it away or whatever. I advise my students to go online and buy the ARRL license manual. I should have one here, but I've lent it out to somebody already for my September 1st class that's coming up shortly. And I advise them, first of all, the most important thing about buying that book is to buy the spiral-bound edition, because otherwise you're fighting with it nonstop trying to get it to stay open. So buy the spiral-bound edition of the ARRL book, go to the back section where all the questions are, take a highlighter, highlight the correct answers. Okay? The reason we do that is I tell my students in the class when they walk in, you are going to learn 35 to 50% of the material. You are going to memorize the rest of it. Whatever you don't understand, you are going to memorize. The objective of the class is to get your license, not to educate you so that you know everything. We want you to get your license. Any learning you need to do, you're going to do after you get your license. Because before you get your license, you don't know what you need to learn. So we get you the basics, we get you the license. On that, I had another thought and it vanished. On that same line, we tell the students to immediately start taking practice tests online. I do not use the practice tests here in class because it's difficult to have it on display and to be using it as a teaching tool while you're teaching. We use the one on eham.net because I just click on A on every single answer all the way through. We go through, the students write down their answers, and then at the end we tally it up and see how they did. And I tell them, I don't care how you did. I tell them quite honestly, pardon my French, the first test you take you're going to suck at because you don't know anything yet. We don't usually start doing the practice tests until the 2nd or 3rd night. So, and this, the way that it's structured is we do an hour and a half of flashcards. Can you click on technician and then click study?
We are here on hamstudy.org.
Yep.
Okay.
Click study mode. Continue as a guest. Now, in class, we try to do it. If you just do this way, it's going to show you random questions from all 10 sections of the technician test. We click on section 1. So roll up to the top.
Jim, you're going to have to lower this so we can see the top.
You can't, oh yeah, you can't scroll down. Yeah. Wrong way. There you go. Keep going. There we go. Yep. A little more, a little more. So up here where it says all questions, if you click on that, you can see it on your screen.
Can't do it? No, it's on.
You can't.
I can't. It's not on this.
It should be.
No, it's not.
How come? Oh, you don't have it on your screen. So you need to go over a little bit further to the left, right, a little more up, right there. Click on that. Now click T1.
You want to do T1?
T1.
Each week, is it each session a different test?
Well, we have 8 classes. There are 10 sections. So some of them are short, and you can get 2 in a night. Some of them you might even be able to get 3 if you hustle. Okay? The way that we do it is we start on a Tuesday night. We do Tuesday and Thursday nights, again, for however many weeks there are in September. The last Thursday, or in this case, I think it's going to be the last Tuesday of the month, is the VE session. We have a group of VEs that come in and administer the test. The test costs $15, which you probably already know. And then it's another $35 to the Florida Citrus Commission for the actual license. So one of the reasons that our classes work as well as they do, this is painfully simple. We do an hour and a half of this, and then we do a practice test every night. And we're always fielding questions, trying to get people to ask questions. It makes my job easier if they have a lot more questions. But what makes this work is that we have 3 people on Tuesday nights, myself, N1BSO John, occasionally Paul, W1GTX shows up. I really wish that Paul would show up more often than he does. He's going through a divorce right now, so that's not good. But because
he will soon.
Yeah, probably, yeah. He already has a girlfriend, though. This is not good. So Paul is an interesting. Well, let me finish that first thought. So we have three instructors on Tuesday night and 2 on Thursday night. So there are 5 different people teaching this class. You're getting 5 different points of view. Okay, some people respond to me, some people respond to John. John's a little bit fast, he drinks too much coffee. The guy on Thursday night, his name is Ted Wojcik. KC1, I can't remember his call sign. Anyways, the brain is a terrible thing to lose. He was an instructor for Digital Corporation. And John worked for Lincoln Labs or somebody, so they have a background in training. So if the students don't respond well to John and me on Tuesday night, they might respond better on Thursday night to Ted and Dennis, the KC1DD. So they have a lot of different experiences dealing with the bunch of us. So, and that just seems to work. That just seems to work for whatever reason. And I think that's the secret to the whole thing. You use more than one instructor, too.
Correct.
So, and again, it's because different people respond differently. You're going to find that some of your students are really good with the rules and regulations, with memorizing all the numbers, what frequencies you can operate on, which ones you can't, et cetera, et cetera. You'll find that other people are really good with the technical stuff. Some people understand the length of the antenna thing. One of the things that I bring to class that you're gonna find this amusing, I hope, is this. So why would I be able to use a slinky in class? Well, if you look at that, there's a radio wave right there. This is VLF, this is VHF, this is UHF. So when you're trying to get people to understand that relationship between wavelength and frequency, here you go. You can get the plastic ones too. They don't behave the same way, but they work.
They don't resonate.
They don't resonate, no. You can actually use these as antennas, but you already knew that. So that kind of keeps things interesting. You got to keep it light. You got to keep it funny. You've got to keep them entertained. You know, part of the business of teaching is entertaining the people so they don't fall asleep or they don't get up and leave. One of the unfortunate realities that we've run into is we'll have 8 or 9 people. He gets 15. I have a new person working on the publicity for mine. I am not good at it. So we have one of our guys is working on getting all the Facebook stuff in place to promote it. I'm not good at that. That's another whole topic. So we'll have 8 or 10 people that show up for class. By the 3rd class, we're down to like 6 because a lot of people show up in class and go, I can do this at home. Why do I need to be here in class? So in addition to the classroom experience that we have, which again is a lot of fun, this is my Zoom device right here. That is called an owl. Does anybody in here know what an owl is? No. An owl is an expensive toy. These cost about $1,500. We got one for $150. We found out there's a friend of mine owns a surplus business down in Hanover. He had 7 of them, and we bought one for I think it was $150, and it didn't work. So Jeff, the club president, and somebody else, I don't remember who went with him, went down. It was Bob. It was you. Went down to BMI Surplus in Hanover, and they went through all 7 of them. They found 2 that worked. We bought one right there for $150. So what that little device does, it has a camera in the top. It also has a series of microphones inside. So if I'm standing here talking, that focuses on me. If Larry over here in the front row starts talking, it swings around and catches Larry. It's made to sit in the middle of a conference table. Big corporations use them all the time so that they can record conferences and so forth. It works very well on Zoom. I try to discourage people from doing Zoom unless they absolutely can't do it because I'd rather have them in the classroom. It's an interactive type of situation. Sometimes we go way off topic on things. One of the things that happened with Paul, W1GTX, I knew I'd get back around to him sooner or later. Paul is a union painter in Boston and had never had his fingers into electronic stuff at all. He knew how to wire a load panel in his basement, but had never really worked on transmitters and receivers and things like that. Within 5 years, he was rebuilding World War II transmitters, BC-610s particularly, the big ones, the 400-pounders. He also has 2 of the 600-pound ones, the T368s. One of them I half own. But anyhow, the thing that was interesting about Paul is that while I am teaching the information and teaching this material, Paul is interjecting how to pass the test. Not necessarily the same thing. Okay, he would come up, and I don't know how he does it. I can't replicate it, and I'd love to have him back in class this fall. But he would come up with comments on the material, particularly with frequency allocations. He says, okay, there's only 2 answers that have this number in it. There's only 1 answer that has this number in it. That's the right one. And I just stand there and I'm dumbfounded. It's like, how did he do that? You know. But Paul goes through all the questions and he comes up with these clever little ways to remember the answers. Because remember, you're going to learn 35 to 50%. You're going to memorize the rest. And he played upon that and showed people easy ways to remember it. And again, a lot of my students respond to that, which is good. You know, I mean, I know that hardcore ham radio people find that appalling that we're doing that, but we got to keep our numbers up. And one of the things that I try to stress at my club, and it falls upon deaf ears most of the time, is that our primary function in this hobby should be promoting the hobby. You know, we need to recruit new people. I had a situation up at Nearfest a number of years ago. I had just bought my first ART-13, which is a B-29 transmitter from World War II. I was sitting in my vehicle chatting with a friend of mine from Maine, and this little girl showed up, about yay tall, and she had a tag on her shirt with a call sign on it, which I did not write down, and I'm sorry to this day I didn't. Her name was Banu. She was 10 years old, She had her little brother with her who was 6. He had his tech license. Okay? She had her general and was doing Morse code. So I was outclassed by this 10-year-old girl by a mile. And I got into a conversation with her. We chatted for probably 20 minutes. And I finally said to her, what?
10 minutes.
10 minutes from now?
10 minutes left, but we have a break.
Good. Okay. So this will only take a second. This girl said something to me that I will take to my grave. I asked her, what do your friends think about ham radio and your ham radio hobby? She goes, they think it's stupid. Okay. Why? This is because they all have cell phones. Okay. So I said to her, I says, okay, you're a 10-year-old kid. What do you tell them? She goes, I tell them you can't make friends on a cell phone. I almost fell over backwards. I was like, what do they say? From the mouths of babes, exactly. So something to keep in the back of your mind. You know, one of the things that happens in my class, and it is a little distracting, is I tell that story. I also tell all sorts of other stories too, because it brings this daunting task of getting this ham radio license into a personal level. You know, it brings it down to earth so that they can get their arms around it. And the other big story they have is one from JT, W1JT. You guys all know him. He told me a story. This may or may not be true, but he told me this story. Jim is a big CW guy, loves doing CW. He told me about being in a hospital, going to visit somebody one time. Have you heard this one?
Oh, yes.
Do you know if it's true? It seems like it could be.
I think it is true.
I think it is.
Yeah.
He heard tapping, a wedding ring on a railing on a bed. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, CQ. He was looking to talk to somebody. So he follows the sound into a room. There's a guy lying in bed, cannot talk. He's had a stroke, but he could do Morse code. So Jim goes out to the desk and says, give me a piece of paper and a pen. I want to write some. What are you doing? You can't do that. And, you know, all sorts of trouble. So she calls one of the doctors in. The doctor says, get him a piece of paper. We'll find out who this guy is. Because he had no ID. He was out jogging and he didn't have any ID on him. So he goes in the room and says, what's your name? Tap, 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 tap. And they got all of his pertinent information, were able to contact the family, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a little story that we like to tell. One of the other things that I do is I go on QRZ, and I call up people that I know, particularly WA1QIX, who has a ham station that would sink a battleship. And I put pictures of ham radio people. I try to include famous ham radio people, like Gary Shandling, the comedian. A lot of people don't know he was a ham radio operator. Walter Cronkite, of course. Tim Allen, Tim Taylor the Toolman, he's a ham. And, you know, just, again, to make this more real to people, you know, other than just this scary microphone that you have to say things into. So following, and this doesn't happen all the time, but following my technician class, I hold it 2 times a year. September 1st, we usually start one right around September 1st, the first Tuesday in September, runs for 4 weeks. I take a week off and then we do a general class after that right through Thanksgiving. Sometimes we do an extra class in January if there's enough interest. I'm not going to go sit in a classroom for 2 people. I'll do it for 6. If I don't have quite 6 people, I'll go, good luck, call me if you need help. I run it again in April, the beginning of April. So why do I do it these 2 times a year? Because it's just before NearFest. You know, you get a bunch of new licensed hams. They can go to NearFest, see what it's all about, spend some money, bring home some radios, make some connections with people, and that seems to work pretty well as well. You know, the general and the extra, they already know all this stuff, but I try to work it so that I can get people in. When Mr. Mike was running NearFest, I used to get passes from him to hand out to kids. They're not all kids. Most of them are old Q-tips like me. We get passes so that we can hand out free passes to go to NearFest with their new license. So, are there any questions? Oh, come on.
So how do they contact you for this September?
That piece of paper that I gave you has the information on it. It's also on the Whitman Amateur Radio Club website, which is wa1npo.org. We also have little business cards that we hand out down at Marshfield Fair and places like that that have the club website on it, so they can get a hold of me through that. But I put my personal phone number and my email address on that slice of paper. Yes, sir.
Would you like to talk a little bit about the flashcards?
Sure.
How you use those?
So let's do it. So what is a control operator is defined in Part 97. Let's see.
Want me to pick an answer?
Pick an answer. It doesn't matter if it's the right answer or not.
It's the wrong answer.
So this is what happens when you get the wrong answer. Now, if you go up to the upper right-hand corner and click that, it flips over and shows you what the correct answer is. This is why these flashcards work really well. And again, I encourage people to do this as many times a day as they can from the first class. In fact, I encourage them to do it before we start taking the class, right up through. And again, also following by taking practice tests. So, the correct answer should be highlighted in green, although I can't really see it on this screen. Yeah, keep going. It's the top one. Okay, it's A. Now, since we got this wrong, it's going to come up again. 3 or 4 questions down the road, this question's going to return, and the answers are not going to be in the same order. So you can't memorize it by A, B, C, D, even though they're not, well, they are labeled A, B, C, D, but you can't memorize it by that. So now click Next. When may an amateur station transmit without a control operator? Anybody know? Anybody want to answer this? Let's try never. Never is correct. And again, if you want to know, click the upper right-hand corner.
You have to answer it to be able to.
Bing, bang, boom. Yeah, you can't look at the answer until you've made a boo-boo or answered it correctly.
Or say, I don't know.
I don't know. And it will show you. So this is a great tool. The program that we used before this didn't really work all that well, but this one works great. And again, we can scroll back through the questions. If somebody may say to me, hey, can you go back to that one about the antenna? Okay, we'll go back to that one. We can look at it again. So it really does work very well. Any questions about that? Yes.
So is this like in person in a classroom?
Yes.
And you're displaying this?
I'm displaying
and
this.
And you're talking about and coaching them through?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Exactly.
So it's not through like a Zoom?
No, it can be. I do run it on Zoom simultaneously. You know, I have that sitting in front of me so they can hear me. The only issue with the OWL is that if somebody in the back of the room starts talking, it doesn't necessarily hear them. But, and it changes position of the camera based on the sound. So
I have a comment on this.
Go ahead.
This is club track. This is things to help clubs. I don't do Zoom because I use this basically as a way to build a membership in my local club. Okay, and the statistics are staggering. Okay, I just did this, but almost half of our club members are post-COVID. Okay, and about 1/3 of them have been licensed 3 years or less. Okay, all of the energy, all of the new interest in doing things, most of the learning, all by the newer hands, and this program is just great.
On a side note, make sure you have one of these, or a cup of tea or coffee, whatever floats your boat. When you get talking, sometimes your throat dries out and you end up having a coughing fit in front of your class. Not a good idea. So make sure you have something to keep your throat lubricated while you're teaching. Want to do a couple more? Now, something that you can do, go up to...
that was a guess.
That was a guess. Yeah, I do that. There are a lot of times when like particularly now where they've just reworded all the questions last month. Sometimes I look at the question, I have no idea. I'm supposed to know this stuff. And usually somebody in the class, Alan, W1AES, I think it's called. AEL, yeah. He sits in on my classes a lot, and he has nothing else to do, so he knows all the answers. So, well, whoops, falling apart here. Yeah, he literally has nothing else to do. I run a full-time clock repair shop at my house, and I'm really busy. And I just got really busier. My younger brother went out of business, is going out of business soon, and I'm going to end up having to pick up his load. So let's go up to T1 there, where it says T1, and let's go down and select maybe 6 or 7, somewhere in there. either one. Now we're getting into the juicy stuff. This is all the impedance and decibels and all the formulas and so forth that you have to know. I get a lot of people who are scared to death of math, scared to death of formulas, and I tell them there's only going to be a couple questions. Make sure you get all the other ones right. If you miss a couple questions on the formulas, don't worry about it, because there's only a couple questions. So using a volts and amps. Where are we? Eventually you do. There you go. So actually, let's go to the next question. Let's look at this. Let's answer this wrong. Which of the following is used to determine if an antenna is resonant? Let's go with a VTVM, just so we get it wrong. Now you can click Show Correct Answer, and it gives it to you. That's another nice little feature that this program uses. Now, that's been there as long as I've used it. It's been there. So, in a nutshell, keep it light, keep it entertaining, keep hammering. Tell them, whenever you go in the bathroom, take the book, look at those highlighted answers, look at it as many times a day as you can. Take as many practice tests every week as you can. The idea is to get that information in front of their face as much as you possibly can before the big night. And we have a strange group of VE people that give our tests. It used to be Lou, N1UEC, but he is retired from that position. And we were this close to throwing paper airplanes around the room while they were taking the test. I mean, I sit in the back of the room when they're taking the test, and he's in the front of the room, and we're talking and joking and everything else.
A lot of jokes.
And yeah, a lot. And a lot. Some people it bothers, and I tell them up ahead of time, if this is going to bother you, bring earplugs, because some people it actually puts at ease. If they hear us talking and laughing and joking and not giving away the answers, it tends to put some people at ease. Some people can't deal with it. Some people think it's fine. So the new guy that's doing it may not be as vocal as Lou was, but at any rate, you want.
It certainly breaks the tension.
It breaks the tension. That's exactly right. It keeps things light and keeps things, sociable, I guess.
So our club, I don't know, 30 or 40% of the club are technicians. And that's fine, but what we'd really like to do is get more of these guys to get their general class license. And how do you have people get their technician license and then just stay there? The challenge is to bring them up to the general class license, because HF has got so much more to offer.
Yep.
And that's the challenge for us. We don't know how to do that.
What I do in that case to try and encourage people to go up to the next license, I invite them to my house.
Seriously.
I invite them to the house. We fire up the 756 Pro or one of the big rigs, one of the real radios with tubes in it. And I get on the air, make a contact. My ham radio station is directly in the back of my clock repair shop. When you walk in, that's the first thing you see. I've snagged at least 3 people with that. In fact, Ted, who teaches on Thursday night, brought a clock in for repair. Now he's a VE. So it does work. But I go in the back of the shop. If it's daytime, I dial up 20 meters, find somebody in Slovenia to talk to or something, and people are just dumbfounded. They go, "You're not using the internet?" Like, nope. It's this radio, that antenna, his radio, his antenna, or her radio, her antenna. And a lot of times that gives people the encouragement. And I tell them, you can't do this with your technician license, at least not as well. Yeah. It's very difficult to get people to commit to anything these days. I beg and plead people to help out. In fact, one of the things that we started doing recently was our open house. We have an open house in the spring, and I invite ham radio clubs. Pi came with his club, and Bruce was there, and we have an open house. And it's just a bunch of people sitting around with ham radios shooting the breeze. And we need to work on getting it dialed in.
That's right.
We're not trying.
We had a picture of it earlier in Pi's presentation.
Yeah.
A beast in there.
There you go. Those people, they come in the shop and they see it and they go, "What's all that stuff back there?" "Oh, that's my ham radio station." People still do that, quote unquote. People still do that. That's the question. And you have to explain to them, yes, people still do that. The preppers are really into it. People who are collecting food, water, guns, ammo, and radios are into it. So,
One other big reason.
what?
Because you can't make new friends on cell phones.
You can't make new friends on the cell phone. There's your answer right there. So, any other questions? One of the other things that I also encourage is hecklers. I encourage people to come to my class and sit in the back of the room and throw rotten eggs and so forth. Not literally, figuratively. And sometimes it's a big help, depending upon who it is sitting in the back of the room. Sometimes Bob comes to my class, and every once in a while, they'll add something that I didn't think of. Or John or somebody else, and it also is nice because, particularly if Mad Mike shows up, because we end up kind of insulting each other and making jokes about each other and things like that, and it shows the social side of the ham radio world. You know, we're just normal people doing what normal people do, and we just sometimes do it on the radio. So I think it adds a little personality to it. That it?
That is it.
That was too easy. That was almost as easy as teaching.